In this video, I am going to share a story of something that happened to me when I was trying to build my agency, sort of in the early days when I had less than 10 grand a month in income. And the moral of this story will help you basically avoid, hopefully, the same mistake I made. If I didn't make this mistake, I would probably have got to six figures, 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, like literally half the time. So in this video, I'm excited to share this story with you. So my name's Charlie Morgan. And I've built two companies. So I've scaled an agency called NorthFlow Consulting to 7 figures. We still have the website, but we don't run it anymore, but you can go and check it out if you want to. And I currently run a company called Imperium Acquisition, which is a high ticket coaching business that helps people systemize client acquisition. Don't worry, I'm only going to sell you something at the end of this video and you can click off before I even get the chance. I don't care. So I've built both these companies, and with the first business, with the agency, I learned a very valuable lesson quite early on. So I'm going to tell you this story and explain basically the pretty tragic mistake that I made. So we'll rewind all the way back to when I was about 17 years old. And when I was 17, I was literally getting ready to go to university. And I ended up going to university before dropping out. But I was at university for about, I think, 6 months. Whilst at university, I did build the first structure of my agency, whereby I had a couple of clients and I had a little bit of stuff going on. Long story short, with uni, it didn't work out for me, but I came home having learned a lot. Now, really where the story starts is when I was 18 years old. So I was doing an apprenticeship, and I basically, whilst doing this apprenticeship, I built my own agency. So the crux of the whole thing here is like, I'd get up at like 5 a.m., I'd work before work, and then I'd do my normal work, my apprenticeship. This was in sales and marketing. And then I'd work on my lunch break, and I'd do my work for the afternoon. I'd come home and I'd work on my agency. And I completed that cycle probably for about a year. I ended up finishing my apprenticeship with 4 or 5 clients. I was making about 4 or 5 grand a month. For context, the apprenticeship paid me £3.50 an hour. So you can see how happy I was there. So when I finished this apprenticeship, I made this pretty awful mistake. So coming out of the apprenticeship, I thought, right, let's scale this thing. Let's try and get to like 10, 20 grand a month so I can really have that financial freedom to travel where I want. And eventually I got to this point where I was doing probably about $6,000 to $7,000 a month consistently. And I made the most awful mistake I've ever made in business. And that was taking my foot off the gas. So there's an interesting concept that you can understand that should help you make the business a bit easier to run. Client acquisition works with latency, right? And what that means is latency basically means delay. The principle of delay applies to client acquisition, whereby the clients that you sign today typically are going to be coming from the work you did a month or a few weeks ago. And the clients that pay you today are going to come from the clients you signed a month or two ago, right? And that's all the way back to the actual outreach you did, weeks prior to that. So I had this business where, it was just me. And I was working with gyms, and this wasn't the business at the time. It was just called CM Digital at this point. I didn't really have like a proper business name or anything. And I had like 6, 7 clients, and I made this really bad mistake of going interrailing. And I basically, for about 2-3 months, I was blind to the fact that I was being an idiot. So I went interrailing. It was great fun. I went with my sister. And, during this, I sort of did some maintenance work on the agency where I was working for some of these clients. But here's the thing about running a agency, right? Clients churn. And, typically the average retention rate is going to be anywhere between 4 to 6 months. So I'd basically been building all of these clients during this apprenticeship, and I was working with them really closely. But every now and then I'd lose one and then replace it, and lose one and replace it. And you sort of enter this revolving door model if you don't have perfect service delivery, which I didn't at the time, right? I learned a lot between now and then for service delivery. But I took my foot off the gas. So for about 2 months, whilst I was like having a great time in Rome and Paris, we went all the way down to South Italy to Corfu and then back up through the mountains. I wasn't really doing anything to actually attract new clients. And this is the biggest mistake I made, is before taking your foot off the gas, you need to make sure that you put a brick on it. And what I mean by that is, you see in those movies where like, if someone's like driving a car and they want the car to keep moving and they want to have like a stunt where they jump out the car, but the car needs to keep going, like they'll put like a brick or something on the acceleration so that the car keeps rolling even when they're not in the car. The mistake I made is I jumped out of the car without putting a brick on the acceleration. And so what happened is like my agency continued to run, right? It continued to go, but because it was using its existing momentum that it had been basically building over the last few months. So I was sort of making this car go really fast for, you know, a considerable amount of time, like 6 months. And it was going really fast and it was growing. And this gave me this awful sense of like security, right? And I say awful, it was a good feeling. But, you know, like Warren Buffett says, like, you know, when you feel secure in business, that's when things are going to go wrong. So I was driving the car, it was going really fast, and that felt really good because I was growing. But I used that as an excuse to take my foot off the gas, and the car continued to roll, it continued to go because of all the momentum I'd built up for probably about 6 months. And it wasn't until I got back from Interrailing that I sort of looked at the car and I thought, oh, fuck. And I came back from Interrailing and my income was probably like $2,000 a month, like 1,500. I lost like, I think 5 clients during that time. And the one client that I had that was still paying me was a new one that I'd signed on the trip. But the problem was I didn't have any sales calls or prospects to reach out to because obviously like you don't, because you haven't done any work, because the sales calls you generate today are going to be from the outreach you did 2 weeks ago typically. And then the clients you sign today can be from the sales calls you did 3 weeks ago. And the retainers you receive today can be from the clients you signed like a month ago. So what we can find is like you have 3 months of work before you actually start seeing any sort of repeated reward from your efforts in business. And you have this car that's like moving and going really fast. But if you don't put a brick on the pedal, which means if you don't put a brick on the machine that continues to move the car forward, and if you're not stopping to refuel it every now and then, the car will continue to go for quite a while because obviously you've been building all this momentum, such is the way momentum works. But over time, the weight of the car will not, you know, will basically slow it down, and the acceleration will just, you know, be beaten by the weight, and then eventually it grinds to a halt. And that was a lesson that I learned because really I had a way of acquiring clients, right? In terms of doing cold calling. But if all I did was spend like two to 3 weeks before going into railing, if all I did was outsource that and hire someone to do it for me and train someone, and I could do sales calls whilst I was away, then I would have been fine. But I came back with this massive gap. Now I managed to build it back up relatively fast. I think it took me like 3 or 4 months to get back to that point where I was doing that. And then after that point, I did learn my lesson. I kept my foot on the gas, and I eventually was able to build like 10, 20 grand a month agency without really having to be there and do much. Nowadays, if I go on holiday, I make sure the pedal is still on. For example, if I am going away, I'll make sure that there's YouTube videos recorded like for the, you know, before like I actually go. I'll make sure the sales team is all sorted. I'll make sure the appointment booking systems are working. But ultimately, like if a business relies on you, it's not going to be a very good idea to remove yourself from it. Because everybody wants that. Everybody wants this sense of removal whereby they are free to do what they want outside of their business. But I'm here to tell you that building a business that allows you to do that is going to take like 2 to 3 years. Everyone thinks you can get it done in like a month or 6 months, where they think, yep, I'm just going to hire a media buyer, hire a sales rep, hire a cold caller, hire a first line writer, hire an emailer, and I'm going to have an onboarding system, and then I'm done. Goodbye. It's not how it works, mate. It takes a long time to build this talent and stuff like that. The secret to outsourcing and the secret to systemization and scale so that the business can grow without you is for you to become really talented at all of the things that need to be done in the business first, so you can then train people and manage people and recognize that talent elsewhere. Because let's say you want to outsource sales calls, right? And you want to remove yourself from the business and decentralize it so you don't have to do sales calls. It's like, in order for you to do that, you need to have the sales talent yourself to recognize other people that would potentially have that talent, and so you can manage them. Because I can tell you, man, trying to manage someone who's working on a task that you don't understand is near enough impossible, right? And trying to hire someone who's good, like if you're not good at sales and you're doing interviews for sales reps, how are you going to know who's going to be good at sales? Because you won't be able to recognize it. And you know, that creates a lot of problems. So that's a lesson that I learned that I wish that I'd been able to fix pretty early on. But you know, if you do want to take a step back, just don't do it until you've got a brick on the pedal. Because if you haven't got a brick on the pedal, the car's going to keep rolling for a bit, and it'll give you, this is what Warren Buffett calls it, a false sense of security. Where, you know, you're a month into your Interrail trip, being a fucking idiot, having a great time eating pizza in Florence, and then before you know it, by the time you get back, your business is basically dead. And you thought that everything was going fine, but because the death happens slowly, you don't notice. This is the thing about a car slowing down, is like, if you get out the car, it's like you're not paying attention to it. It's like it's slowing, but the slow is gradual, right? There's no extreme contrast between like suddenly overnight losing a bunch of clients. It's like you lose one client and then like maybe 2-3 weeks later you lose another one, but then you sign one so you think not too bad, and then 2 drop off and you're on a beach, so you're sort of thinking, oh, I'll worry about this when I get back. Just be very careful, all right? Because like time off is a luxury that an entrepreneur can only afford once they've been through enough suffering. Okay. So anyways, if you do need help getting clients, there's a link in the description you can click. It basically is a funnel, right? I'm not going to bullshit you. So there's a video of me trying to sell you something, right? So you can look at that if you want to. Basically, we help people make client acquisition easy. We do it on a pay and results basis. We've got a pretty cool offer where you can get a bunch of clients and you don't pay us unless it actually works. So you can check it out if you want to. I really don't mind if you do or not, but if you do need help getting clients and you want help beyond free YouTube videos, then you can check that out. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the fancy stuff that I'm supposed to say to do but can't really be bothered to, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.